You know, in the skies over today's battlefields, there's a completely new kind of war being fought. It's this high-stakes, high-tech chess match between the hunter and the hunted, between a weapon and all the complex gear designed to stop it. And today, we're going to break down exactly how this invisible battle is being won and lost. Look, this is not science fiction. This is happening as we speak. We're seeing this relentless storm of unmanned systems everywhere from the air to the sea. And it's forcing militaries to ask a really fundamental question. In this new age of warfare, how do you even build a shield? And maybe more importantly, how do you break it? Just take a look at this number for a second. 596. That's how many drones and missiles Russia reportedly launched in just one night against Ukraine, according to the Institute for the Study of War. It's just a staggering figure, and it really shows you the sheer scale of this new reality. So that brings up two huge questions, right? First, how do you possibly defend against an attack that massive? And then from the other side of the coin, if a defense can be built, how do you figure out a way to punch right through it? To answer that, we've got to get one thing straight. This new age of warfare, it's already here. The drone age isn't some far-off concept on the horizon. It is the defining feature of conflict today. And you know, when we say drone, we're not just talking about the little quadcopters you see flying around. The term really covers any unmanned system, whether it's flying, driving on the ground, or even sailing across the water. And their use is just exploding across the board. I mean, at sea, you're seeing these mass kamikaze boat attacks. On land, unmanned vehicles are clearing mines. And in the air, drones are even being used to hunt other drone operators. This isn't just a new tool, it's completely changing military tactics. So naturally, with every new weapon comes a new defense. It's the classic story. So let's take a look at how militaries are scrambling to build a drone shield to deal with this threat. At its core, it really boils down to a pretty simple two-step process. First, you have to find the thing, using radar or radio scanners to detect and identify what's coming at you. And second, you have to stop it. And that second step is called interdiction, which is just the fancy word for disabling or destroying the threat. And this is where the tech gets really fascinating. Okay, so there are four main ways to do it. First, you've got your kinetic options, basically just shooting the drone down with guns or missiles. Second, you can use electronic jamming to cut the drone's link to its pilot. And third, you have directed energy, like powerful lasers that can melt the frame or microwaves that literally fry the electronics inside. All of these together form the layers of this defensive shield. But of course, for every shield, someone, somewhere is trying to build a better sword. Researchers Zachary Kallenborn and Marcel Plichta actually identified 11 distinct methods for breaking right through that shield. 11? Yeah, not just one or two, but a whole toolkit of different tactics and technologies. These are the countermeasures, right? The really clever ways that attackers are making sure their drones hit their targets, despite that sophisticated shield we just talked about. Let's break them down. The first strategy is pretty straightforward. Just make the drone a harder target to kill. This could mean using special coatings to reflect laser energy or using stealth tech to hide from radar. It also means beefing up its internal systems, like its communication and navigation with backups and encryption that make them way more resistant to jamming. The second strategy is to make the drone smarter. See, if you give it more autonomy, it doesn't need that constant radio link to a human operator, a link that's super vulnerable to jamming. It can also use the weather to its advantage, flying through fog or smoke on purpose to block the path of a defensive laser beam. And the final category, well, it's all about overwhelming the defense with brute force and a bit of deception. This includes massing. And hey, remember that number, 596? That's the whole idea. You send so many drones that the defenses are just completely saturated. You can also use cheap decoys to draw enemy fire, or even time the attack with other weapons, like artillery, to take out the shield before the main drone strike even arrives. So this all might sound like theory, but it's playing out in the real world every single day. The war in Ukraine has basically become a live fire laboratory for this exact cycle of measure and countermeasure. And this just illustrates the connection perfectly. Remember that massing tactic we just talked about? That is precisely what the Institute for the Study of War was describing in its report on Russia's massive combined drone and missile strikes. They're trying to saturate and overwhelm Ukrainian air defenses with just sheer numbers. And here's why this is such a massive game changer. An Iranian-designed Shahed drone costs maybe $20,000. A conventional cruise missile? That can cost $2 million. This crazy economic imbalance is at the very heart of the problem for defenders. You're forced to use incredibly expensive missiles to shoot down what is essentially a flying lawnmower engine with explosives strapped to it. It's just not sustainable. So where does this all go? What does the future of this technological arms race even look like? Well, the key takeaway is this. It's not about finding one single superweapon or some perfect unbreakable shield. The future is this rapid, relentless cycle of innovation. For every defense, a counter will be developed, and for every counter, a new defense is going to pop up. As the authors of the Breaking the Shield paper put it themselves, this constant back and forth is what will ultimately define the impact of drones on warfare and on global security. The winner isn't who has the best tech today, but who can adapt the fastest for tomorrow. Which leaves us with a final, really crucial question. In this new era, an era defined by a constant, evolving battle between the sword and the shield, is victory itself simply a matter of speed? Is the future of conflict determined not by who is strongest, but by who can innovate and adapt just one step ahead of their opponent?